Hello, everyone, and good evening. I would like to formally welcome you to the fifth episode of TalkX. I am Samruddh, an associate technical writer here at Razorpay, and your host for today. TalkX is an initiative of the Razorpay tech writing team where we aim to bring together the tech writing community to exchange ideas, share experiences on trending topics in the global market and how they affect our work. In our previous episode, Measuring Docs Effectiveness and Quality, we discussed defining effective documentation, tools for assessment, integrating user feedback, and addressing challenges. The theme of today's episode is technical writing in the finance domain, where we will dive deep into the intersection of technology, finance, and documentation. Joining us are esteemed professionals who have worked extensively in documentation in the finance field. I would like to introduce the panelists quickly. First, we have Mr. Gopalkrishna Tharoor. Gopalkrishna is a project manager at Pride India and has over 30 years of experience in diverse industries. He is a strong believer in the principle of Shoshin to approach anything with a learning mind like a child. His passions include cooking, caption writing, and other, etc. Welcome to our podcast, sir.
Thank you.
Next,
Hi
we
to
have.
everyone.
Hello. Okay. Next, we have Mr. Raghuram Pandurangan. Raghuram is currently a senior docs manager at PayU India and has worked over 20 years in technical writing. He has also served as the vice president of STC India from 2000 to 2021. He also actively mentors aspiring technical writers and loves traveling and road trips. Welcome, sir.
Thanks,
We also have Vinita Jagannathan with us. Vinita is a technical writer with over 10 years of experience, mostly in fintech. She currently works as the lead technical writer here at Razorpay. She finds joy in crafting short tales, and when not immersed in the world of writing, Vinita enjoys Netflix binges and also exploring new worlds through books and articles. Welcome, Vinita.
Thank you.
Okay, so with introductions and icebreakers done, I think we can jump right into the discussion. My first question will be to Mr. Gopalkrishna. You have worked across diverse fields such as aerospace, finance, gaming, medicine, and HR. In what ways does documentation in finance differ from that in other fields? And how have you approached the associated challenges?
Okay, you throw light on a very interesting aspect. What I find very, very relevant in this industry is that you have to be very focused in whatever you deliver. You just cannot come up with a set of documents because you are dealing with associate partners also in this industry. You may be doing only the coding aspect and the documentation aspect. Somebody else will be taking care of, let us say, the QA and testing. A third party will be doing the actual testing, or the Citibank manager with whom I was in a great way associated, which is essentially the next question. But I just want to throw light on that, is where your ultimate go or no go to the documentation happens. This is one segment that has been so very systematic in its approach of how you document that we have done a lot of research in terms of how they have to deliver everything. There may be bits and pieces of paper, but since we work with the print output, we had what you call the early beginnings in 2000. That's what I would like to say. So if I take a particular new project, or let us say it is something where I'm modifying something, each followed its own process and each had its method to whatever it's called the Citibank way of life. When you compare to the other fields, you have to apply something else to them, but it doesn't work good, right? They have their own systems and procedures. Whereas in this particular industry, we were so focused on quality, processes, and we had to abide by the norms of CMMI very early in our career.
Okay, so precision and research is very important, correct? Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. This is to Raghuram. In the finance industry, where regulatory compliance is very important, how do you ensure that your documentation aligns with and aids the user in navigating these compliance requirements?
Yeah, first of all, hello to everyone. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, regulatory requirements is there for many of the industries. I work with healthcare and construction and even network management. Everywhere there are regulatory requirements. So the first thing is we must understand the regulatory requirements. So once you have a thorough understanding, list them in your corresponding product. So for example, in our uh, fintech industry, say we are having web checkout integration, so various offerings, right? So for example, in Razorpay or even PayU we offer redirect based checkouts or the seamless integration. So, what are the regulatory requirements? Yeah, the merchant should require to have a seamless integration, whereas in case of redirection based checkout, they do not have any the those compliance requirements, right? So we have to list them in the introduction as a note or prominently, so that they understand that it is very much required before they start with getting onboarded to your system. And the next thing is keep it simple and provide examples. So if you're having any such scenarios where you are going to provide integration, so provide examples, make it accessible. So make it accessible in the sense like you have your help online, posted online, and keep it up to date. So keep it up to date in the sense like you know that our industry is having time to time RBI brings a lot of regulations or time to time. So for example, recently we have alt ID, and earlier we had all the all the companies or merchants have had to move to the new safeguard regulations, right? So we have to keep it up to date, and we have to mention the deadline everywhere. That is, you have to be ready with your migration by say September 2022, something like that. So we need to keep on maybe sending them the reminders accordingly, or keep the documentation updated. So that's what I think.
Oh, yeah. So just to have a follow-up on that, do you have any set processes for keeping up to date, like any timelines that you work on?
We don't have any set processes, but if we get to know all those things, we get the information from the product managers. So in at PayU, we like unlike my previous company where I used to work with engineering, I work with product managers. So I get all the information from them and implement them and get it reviewed. So the most important thing in any company we work with, right? Our content should be reviewed by the subject matter expert. So here it is product managers. So we don't have any definite process in this regard, but we ensure that all this whatever we are including in the documentation are reviewed.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. Oh, this is to Vinita. Vinita, given the sensitive nature of financial transactions, how does the team at Razorpay address the security concerns in documentation to improve user trust?
Sure. So I think this might be repetitive for some of us, but I'll still say it. What is the core business of Razorpay? Razorpay helps businesses with money movement. That is, it helps businesses to accept payments from customers and make payouts. So there are two parties. One is a business and one is a customer. Now, what does security mean in this context? Security means that when this financial transaction is happening between a business and a customer, is their data being safeguarded? Is it being secured? Can it be tampered with? Is it authentic? So all these are managed using some various protocols and measures. So that is what security means in the financial transactions context. Now looking at what Razorpay does in terms of documentation is, we do have a security specific documentation we have developed over years, wherein we clearly mention that Razorpay has a shared security responsibility model, which means that while Razorpay will do things at its end to ensure that data is going to be safeguarded, we also expect businesses to take some measures at their end as well. So what does Razorpay do, right? So first, we are PCI DSS compliant. We are ISO 27001 certified. All this means is that we are very serious about safeguarding the data that we have at our end. And we also use field levels, encryption measures for this PII that we have, this personal identification information. And we also have TLS encryption protocols that are implemented. So these are some of the measures that Razorpay takes at its end, not to talk about the fraud and risk separate teams that we have to work on those ends. Coming to the business, again, in our documentation, we assure businesses that, we are PCI DSS compliant, we are certified, but you also have to take some steps at your end, right? So for example, when the businesses, do the integration with Razorpay, they have to generate the API key ID and secret. However, they cannot just share this information with anybody out there. Sometimes they might have to do, for example, when, my one business is trying to talk to an external developer to integrate Razorpay for them. At that time, they have to probably pass over the API key ID and secret. But again, they can regenerate the API key so that the same information is not spread out everywhere, right? Second thing we tell businesses is, hey, you have when you sign up for Razorpay, you get a Razorpay account and you have a dashboard access. Now, you cannot give this owner access to everybody out there in your team. If you want your team members to also access the Razorpay dashboard, should probably assign them specific roles. Like finance, a personnel gets a specific role assigned, and the privileges they have are limited to their role. So this is another way, another thing that we talk about in documentation. You should probably implement this in your business. Again, we have some checklist measures we mentioned, like you should follow 2FA, you should have password manager. So these are some of the things that businesses, can do at their end itself. Now, coming to customers, again, right, we assure them, your data is safe with us. And as Sir already mentioned that RBI recently mandated that the card details have to be saved in the form of tokens. Now, we tell customers that we have a card management portal, wherein your card data that is saved as tokens, you can come to our portal, you can delete it whenever you want. And we have also given the steps to that. So customers have full control and ownership over the data that they have. So all of this will build a sense of trust among the business and customers. One final thing I would want to say is that what we all practice at the Razorpay Tech Writing team is that in our documentation, you would see we have a lot of API code samples, SDK code samples. We also have a lot of screenshots and videos. And in all of them, some sort of financial information would be there, right? You would have some kind of card data, some kind of personal information like email ID or phone numbers, names. Again, we take care that this information is dummy information and not real-time information. No customer information is going to go there in such kind of data that we present. So you would see a lot of Gaurav Kumar and Gauri Kumaris in our documentation. So this is some care that we take at our end to ensure that nothing is getting leaked from the documentation team itself. So yeah, these are some of the measures that we adopt.
Correct. So documentation plays a very important role in educating the users of their responsibility as well.
Yes, definitely.
Got it. Thank you, Vinita. So before I move on to the next round of questions, I think we can have a small discussion. This question is open to all the panelists, so you can just raise your hand and go ahead and speak. My question is that given the increasing importance of financial literacy, how do you see documentation playing a role in educating users about financial concepts and products while also being concise? So anyone can just unmute and get started.
Today with AI also stepping in, what I would like to do is use ChatGPT in a way where everything is given as a markdown where people can delete those, download those snippets, right? If you provide a markdown piece of code to something that can be downloadable, right? Provide them as short snippets like, the YouTube shorts akin to that. So you have this little piece of information that I still will not consume a lot of space. It's available as a markdown. I can take it across multimedia wherever I want to see it on the go or in office or wherever necessary. If I'm somebody like a stickler for notes, last option is have a printout and keep it safe so that, I refer it to it at a future date or use it for my LinkedIn post. Like I am a huge stickler for that. If you go to my LinkedIn, I have my archives of 2007 that I kind of keep referring back to or posting them as posts so that this wealth of information that is there is not lost for the current generation, right? So this is one thing that I strongly believe in. With the latest technologies available, I think Markdown is the best way to go about it.
So Samrut, to reconfirm, we are talking about how documentation plays a role in educating users about financial concepts.
Yes, on those lines, and also being concise at the same time.
Okay. I think I'd like to go at this question a bit differently. First is what is financial literacy really like? So financial literacy is when as a person I'm able to understand what investments are, what savings is, how do I budget my expenses, how do I do taxation. So I think all of these concepts are related to financial literacy. Now uh, so how to understand, so how to see how documentation plays a role in this aspect is I will put myself in a user journey now and see where I, really touch documentation. So suppose, as you know, I'm Vinita, I'm a tech writer, and I have a job, but now I have a plan that in 2024 I want to travel to so many countries. Now I need a second stream of income because I have to travel so much. So I will probably look at different investment options, how I can grow my money, right? So now I will probably go to Google and say how to start a mutual fund, how to invest in mutual fund, how to start a SIP or something. And then I will, the usual suspects, the usual culprits would be Zerodha or 5paisa or Grow, or these people will pop up where people will say, hey, you can, invest in this mutual fund or something. And again, I'll also probably get results from, these money gurus who say, you invest, you follow my market, my money making strategies, and 25 din mein paisa double ho jayega. So if I am financially literate, I will understand what is a scam and what is the reality and what I should probably go for. And that is where I think these startups that I told about, like Zerodha or Upstocks or 5paisa, come in, wherein what I have seen is that they have tons of videos out there which are educating people. Like very simple things like what is a demat account. People don't know, but they are making a short video on that. They're communicating that. And this is not just in English. They are there in Hindi. I could see a few videos in Tamil also. So it's like they are trying to reach a lot of users across different backgrounds and trying to help all of them to achieve their financial goals and be financial literate to some extent. So what I have observed is that videos are a main format in which this information is being disseminated among people. So I think with videos, people will not read a lot of text, so documentation is automatically concise to some extent. People will just watch a video and get educated about it. And I also saw one of the startups, which is 5paisa, has a huge app on its own. It's called FinSchool. It's an app you can download and you can learn everything about finance concepts. So I think these are some new age ways, modern ways in which information is being documented and being shared with users. I think your question was also about products. So I am assuming you mean the products using which you can probably do these investments or do these savings or build your financial, go for your financial goal. So in such cases, like I think how to documents, how to articles, again, short videos, uh, FAQs, glossaries, all this would definitely help in making the documentation concise as well as being useful to the user and helping them achieve their goals.
To second whatever you said, Vinita, the latest happens to be what you call, since last year, the budget has made investing in Bitcoins and cryptocurrency valid. So people now can move beyond 5paisa as a product and go and look at the Bitcoin currency. All that you need is you need to have a lakh of equivalent invested bare minimum. That is, the Bitcoin worth should be 1 lakh and above. So if you have that kind of money planted, all that you need is, if you're an active trader, you need to pay property tax of 30%. Okay. So, but still, if I trade for $1,000 a day on a daily basis, I pay the government 300 and 700, I still pocket. And for the entire month, if you look at it, I've still made my cool killing, still paying 30% 5% tax is the latest product information I thought should be a valid input for the rest of the gang.
Definitely. Thank you.
So yeah, that was a really informative discussion. We discussed about leveraging AI to make it concise and more available to users. We had a look at the simulator of where users can try it on their own. And also we discussed about various organizations that are actively taking part to educate customers, and also with the business angle where they connected to their products. So it's a very informative discussion. So I'll move on to the second round of questions. To Mr. Gopalkrishna, you have a lot of experience in leading initiatives in quality control processes and protocols, particularly during your tenure at Citibank. You also shed some light over it in the previous question. So could you elaborate on your experience and its evolution over the years?
Right. Okay. Now, I started off at a time when we dealt with products called X-SEL, and we dealt with a product called CDS. Now, if you ask me what it was the equivalent today, it is nothing but your product cross-sell, which is Excel. What you know as CDS, this is called combined dedupe in my days, but you know it as background verification. So product naming itself has evolved over a period of time. What I used to deal with it in good old Citibank days is not what the product that we see. It has come a very far way. I mean, 25 years is no mean joke, right? I would have probably, let me do a bit of compare and contrast here. The rest of the development team would probably work in Unix terminals. The documentation team will be on your Windows 95, 98, or the Windows 2000 system, if that upgrade did happen and the organizations had money to invest. Fine. So you're stuck in a very archaic age doing your documentation, but when you take a printout, it has to be on what you call your 80-column paper with the perforation. Because that's what is accepted at the QA level, where, for instance, let us say I'm working on a brand new product. 5 things are mandatory. You had to have an approved requirement definition document signed off by the project manager to get work started. You had your to sign in to the Citibank location where you did the coding. And for that, you had to have a program specification. For that program specification, you had to have the unit test cases signed off. And for each unit test cases, we had to run the unit test results and give it as a set of 5 documents. Now, cut to, let's say I'm modifying a program. Something happens. In this particular case, there would be no program specification, but it was called Modi PS or Modi program specification. Modification to the existing program specification, it was called truncated as Modi PS. And the same set of unit test cases, the added unit test cases, the unit test results. One thing you could take is results as expected was not what they wanted to see. They wanted to see the actual program output that will bring for the change that they wanted you to modify. That way, they were very clear in terms of whatever their outputs that they wanted to see. This is because 3 organizations were involved. QA and testing was done by another vendor called ThinkSoft. Actual Citibank project manager is the one who will say go, no go. Development is handled by us, but on the Citi environment. We did not have access to the core environment. And you could have what you call, I think by far the best was, we were working for Citicorp Overseas Software Limited, which was a CMMI level 4 company established already. So things like what is a process, what is a policy, what is a procedure, what is a template available in a common site, internal intranet, was something like, I will call it a Varaprasad or something like that, very early in 2000s. Unheard of. But for me, starting off there was like, huge eye-opener that this is where I need to have a method to the madness of documentation. It has to be simple, but it has to follow certain norms. So this kind of stood as what you call a learning ground or a standard, de facto standard for me for work to come in the further years. Applying this to whichever domain I went to or to create a template was not a hard thing to do. It was a learning that I carried for a very long time. The other thing was knowledge of the domain. You had to have excellent knowledge of the domain, whether you liked it or not. And that was like a churn, right? Because products keep coming and going. You need to stay abreast. What is this new product? Where does it address? And then I'm happy that, I was nominated as a technical writer to attend a 3-day program in some corporate location, along with management graduates and project managers. And quite easily, with that 5 years of experience that I had built in in my team called loans and mortgages, I stood first in that batch, which for a technical writer was a huge credit those days, topping the batch. So if you look at it, applying process, quality, and following a principled way of documenting as early as 2000 helped a lot in the subsequent years, in the subsequent domains, and also modifying it to wherever it was applicable. My stint in Cognizant, which came later, was a decade. But there, I was very fortunate to work with a core quality team which handles the delivery assurance in these areas. I'm just digressing a bit, but I'm just trying to add where this was an add-on to me and how it helped me in my future domains too. That's about it.
Okay, oh, wow, that was insightful indeed. So processes, templates, very important, and picking it up early helps you in your entire career. Yes. Okay, so moving on, my next question is to Mr. Raghuram. Can you share a few insights on how documentation on PayU or your previous organizations contributes to user education, be it the merchants, be it developers, be it the users or the end customers, anyone, and especially in the context of complex financial instruments? And also, have you received any feedback from the users around the same thing?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, technical documentation plays a key role in educating and empowering our merchants or developers in case of our financial fintech products. To reiterate whatever things I had mentioned earlier, we should simplify all the complex concepts when we are explaining the document, and provide the guidance on the regulatory compliance. As I mentioned, whenever having your introduction of any product, mention what is the regulatory compliance required and offer examples and use cases. On your question on receiving feedback, on our every documentation page, we have the thumbs up or thumbs down option. So we collect feedback in that manner. And other than that, how we understand our merchants or customers is we may go attend a few calls with our integration team, but that is very remote scenario. But what we do is, for example, we go sit with the interns who have some program knowledge. So we ask them to do some integration. We ask them to take an integration guide and stick to the steps and try to integrate. And we see where they are getting stuck. And so we take those feedback and implement them. Okay. Not only that, we also go check not all the customer support tickets in our Salesforce. So we use Salesforce for collating getting all the customer tickets and answering them. So we go there and we take a sample of maybe 300 or 400 tickets a month. So and we run through them and take analytics of it. And based on that, we try to implement FAQs, or we try to find out any area of documentation is lacking on some information and implement that. Hope that answers your question, Samrat.
Yes, indeed. Oh, very informative. So I will move on to the next question to Vinita. Vinita, in the finance sector, accuracy is very important, as we all know. So how does your team at Razorpay deal with technical documentation being accurate and precise, especially in sensitive areas?
Right. So accuracy is indeed one of the key pillars of documentation. the user is coming to documentation most of the times and he's stuck somewhere. And if that situation, we don't give him accurate information, then documentation might as well not exist, right? Then what is the use? Now I would like to take the example of something that we do at Razorpay, which is payment gateway integration that everybody is aware of. So take this example where a developer has referred to documentation, he has started integrating, and in the documentation there is an error. There is a mandatory parameter, but he made it optional. So now the developer has tried to integrate and he's going to hit errors for sure because there was a mandatory parameter. He said, "Acha, optional hai. Why should I? I'll probably not integrate that." And now he is stuck with issues and now he doesn't know how to resolve it. Documentation has no insights for him. He'll probably go to Stack Overflow trying to find some answer, or he will raise a support ticket and then his go live is no go. It's basically stuck because of incorrect documentation. So accuracy is indeed very, very important. Now, what we do at Razorpay is, first is, of course, we talk to the subject matter experts, as both the panelists earlier mentioned. It is very important to talk to them to understand what we are even documenting, right? So we have interviews with them. We understand what the product is all about, what the new feature is all about. We read through their concept notes, the tech specs they share. We also ask for product walkthroughs, like take us through the steps, let us know what the user flow looks like. And then we don't stop there. We don't immediately start documenting. We also do a hands-on approach, right? We have a hands-on approach. We tell the subject matter experts, the developers, the PMs, the PMMs that, okay, you gave us the concept note. Now, can you give us the test environment credentials? We would like to try it once at our end to see if this is indeed the flow, if we are capturing all sorts of, the right information or not. Then after the hands-on experience, that is when we actually document. And then that's when, the first draft is ready and everything. Now, again, work doesn't stop here. After the document is created, as one of the panelists also again said, we have to send it back to subject matter experts. So they validate it and let us know that, yes, we have understood things correctly. We have documented things rightly. So we need this validation from the subject matter experts as well. We don't go live without this at all. Now, so yes, the documentation is now published, but we don't stop here, right? So no document is 100% perfect. There is always a scope for improvement. And we also have, like Raghuram sir mentioned, we also have some, external measures to understand if documentation is right or not. But before that, we do have regular connects with the PMs to understand, hey, is there any update in your product? Do we need to make any changes in the documentation? And then we rely on the external information. That is the embedded feedback system we have, where people, like the developer I mentioned in the previous example, he can come to documentation and say, hey, you said this, option, this parameter is, say, you had said it's optional, but it is actually mandatory. You should correct this in your documentation. That is one way in which we get feedback and we can work on our documentation. Another thing is, again, the user feedback surveys we do. We talk to the users and tell them, hey, this is the documentation. Why don't you try it out? We'll give you some activities. You refer our documentation and actually do it. So again, this is a way of validating the document and to find out any gaps that we have. And again, we also analyze support tickets, wherein we see if there is any improvement area, any improvement opportunity for us. So yeah, these are the different ways where we ensure that our documentation is accurate enough.
So everything at the end falls to making the user journey more peaceful. Okay.
Do I have your permission to add 3 things to whatever Vinita just said?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, the 3 things that I've noticed very systematically is NA should be defined as not applicable. It should not be construed to be not available, right? To that extent, they were finicky about the terminology usage or how we document. A. B, she rightly said, unlike of today's instance where the PM interferes and says, no, we don't have time for that. You have to go back and modify the code. We had a methodical project manager sitting out there. Is this business critical or not? Or is it BAU? If it's BAU, it can be shifted. If it is business critical, it has to go. So that was the only subtle, like early steps to what, yes, you have to sit overnight and work on it today. It's not as critical as we see it today, right? Where, you are sitting for something that was supposed to be delivered day before yesterday, wasting your Saturday and Sunday. It's not that as bad, or that mid-phase where we encounter, right? The third thing is, for everything that was mentioned, accuracy was very, very vital because you're dealing with somebody else's money. So that was fundamental. thumb rule that kind of bound all of us and continues to hold good today also.
Correct. Yeah, very insightful points. Thank you so much for that. Sure, Sai, go ahead.
Hi, so I'm Sai, and I have a question for Gopalkrishna sir. So we know that the financial industry is very dynamic, and you having the experience that you have, you're talking about Citibank from a time that I wasn't even born in. So my question to you is, um, given the dynamism of the industry and the kind of technologies that you've seen come into picture throughout all these years, how have you as a technical writer evolved and developed your learning curve? And yeah, the first thing is how you've done that.
This is where I
Yeah.
would like to kind of attribute it to my LinkedIn profile header, which is a concept called Shoshin. Approach anything like with a childlike behavior and be open to learning. Never stop learning because you say that you've already reached the end of the learning curve. The learning curve is always steep. This year, when 2024 started off, okay, the latest trend is generative AI. So it leaves you pick, okay, what is generative AI, and you start picking up your. So if I can say, if I'm may advise you, I could ask that question. If I can do that, I would say set aside 1,800 to 2,000 rupees of your money for a LinkedIn premium subscription. It helps you to get into the learning and stay abreast with whatever you do. So some amount of Amazon and Flipkart money that you would otherwise like to kind of swipe and let it go away, set aside for yourself, if that helps. And if I am allowed to give that little piece of advice.
So you're saying that we need to allocate our time and spend it on learning.
Just
Harmonizing our
30
time.
minutes a week. If I
Yeah.
cannot spend that time for myself, I'm sorry to say I'm not on the right track under today's circumstances. Because I'm somebody like my, what you say, contemporaries in the industry is like Nibu, whom you have met, and Raghuram. All of us keep abreast, and that's exactly how we are able to stay relevant. Otherwise, we would have become statues long time back. Right? If Raghu is able to do something from PayU perspective, it's because he has kept himself relevant. It's not because of STC or I have networked very well or no. Right? You have to see, there is this nice thing about marketing executive was asked this question, right? How come you're always there picking up the right opportunities? So she put on a smile and said that I jump for the right opportunity. So next question was, there was a small chitter chat, and then before concluding, the same person asked her, how do you know which is the right opportunity? How do you know when to jump? Sorry, how do you know when to jump? So without battling an eyelid, she immediately told me, I know where to jump. Right? So it's a question of you being relevant, knowing what to do when, and being competent for the ever-changing industry.
So,
Because
as
that's
to
what I said,
what,
no, in my days, it was Unix and ProC. PLSQL was unheard of. Then suddenly when I moved to Cognizant, everything was PLSQL, RIP ProC. Right? So ProC died a natural death. PLSQL became your backend. Right? Today, PLSQL is also there, keeping itself relevant because the mainframes are there. But everybody has moved on to open sourcing. You have MongoDB and the likes. I do not know what it is now. So things have moved afar. API now. So really, do I need a backend at all? Or do I need an Oracle SQL DB analyst? No. Probably the answer is no. But then I do have people who claim that from a, what you say, documentation management or content management, SharePoint is vital. But what they do or what they omit is, they come back with a very, very hazy reply that last year the SharePoint license we failed to extended. So we lost the data. And that's something very miserable to. Very, very miserable to. And that happens when you leave the company and try to, approach somebody in the current organization. Oh, we forgot to, the SharePoint license, we'll just let it go and all that data was lost. And when they say that with, absolute cynicism, that's where you feel like, all the hard work gone down the drain.
Which I think highlights another important point, that you are learning not just for yourself. You're not just learning because you have to stay relevant. It's because you have a responsibility towards the people that you're serving. Like you are in the company, you're working, you have the responsibility of taking care of others who put their trust in you. So thank you. That answers my question. Over to Samrit.
Sorry,
We had a-
wanted to add something, like to what Gopal had mentioned. So, so not only you spend 30 minutes learning every week, it's always good to have a mentor. So I've seen that that is lacking in our industry, like because mentors help you identify what you're lacking, and they will provide you what you have to learn or what you have to improve on, so that you can grow in your career. So everything boils down to that, right? So why you are trying to improve yourself every day, why you are learning, so you want to grow in your career on one fine day, right? So you identify and find a mentor, have a regular maybe interaction with them. So the one of the best place we in the industry is conferences or meetups, right? So that is one of the important things we need to have. So I also didn't have a very rapid career path. I grew slowly in the industry. After 20 years only, I became a manager in PE, right? So it is my it was not like intentional, or it is my comfort zone was like I have to grow slowly. But to become a manager, I had taken help of my mentor, and taken a few uh, points which I have to learn, and I worked on them, and now like I'm feeling comfortable here in pay. Okay. So having a mentor is very important, and you also try to share your knowledge with others. So that is how you learn more. Okay. So you will be confident in the subject. So remember, I had presented in our last meetup in Razorpay, right, last year. So at that time, I was also not so confident about generative AI. Before coming, I also learned about some of the basic and some background about generative AI. So I felt that okay, when we are going to present, we should also stick to those things and learn those things. So that is how you learn, and you also be confident, and you'll remember a lot for a long time.
Correct. Yeah. I think in the times of 70 hours a week, 30 minutes additional doesn't sound so bad. So, thank you, Raghuram. Thank you, Gopalkrishna. And thanks, Sai, for that question. So we have another 3 minutes left. So I would like to ask the panelists if any one of you have something to say in closing words.
Stay hungry, stay relevant.
From my side, again, thanks, Razorpay. It was glad meeting you all. So didn't realize that we already finished an hour discussing about our best practices. Uh, what I wanted to stress upon, so in addition to what Gopalkrishna Tharoor mentioned, is so one thing I noticed is like this generation of writers are too much focused on shifting between companies instead of staying in a company for a while. At least I would say, if you're in a company for 3 years also, I would say you are not still confident with the subject. So stick to a company for at least more than 3 years. Uh, then only you have learned something. Uh, and maybe after that, if you're not in the compulsion, move away from that company. So that is what my only closing note. Yeah, thanks again.
Okay, so with that, we come to the end of this episode. And I think a few pointers will be to stay accurate, stay updated, follow processes, aid user journey, and continue learning, of course. And yeah, so with that, I would like to thank all the panelists for such insightful opinions and inputs and for making this such an engrossing discussion. That was an amazing last hour filled with thoughts, insights, and laughs. And also a big thank you to all our audience for making this episode a success. So make sure that you follow us on LinkedIn and Spotify and stay tuned for our next episode where we will discuss internationalization and localization in technical writing. And thank you. It was lovely meeting you all.